Well, hello, hello. My goodness, Fairy Freak, you are ready and waiting here. You are right on track. But welcome in. Give everybody a little time to jump in, get their notifications. I was just cleaning off my trainer hand, and I just use just like a alcohol wipe. You guys, you can use, just even a damp cloth or something to clean off all of the dust. But it just helps to keep it a little tidier and easier to use when it's nice and clean and dust free. So just like our clients, we always want to make sure that we're washing or they're washing their hands, we're washing our hands before we start a service. So sometimes it's kind of just a good idea to get into that habit of, cleaning your trainer hand before you start your service, just to kind of get you into that mode. But welcome in everybody. Hello Andrea and Top Nail and Janica. And who else is with us? Guys, let me know who we are, where you're joining us from. Throw that in the chat. I would love to hear and see who's with us, see who's joining us today. I'm just getting my nails ready to go here. I think we're only going to be doing one nail today. I know last week we did 4 different designs, but I think today we'll probably just stick with one for today. But I am going to shorten this up a little bit, get that nail ready to go. And then we'll go ahead and get started. But you guys always make sure, if you haven't beforehand, check on our Discord server. I always post up all of the products and things that we're going to be using for our demo during the day. So if you ever want to work along with me, you can always check our Discord and see what we're going to be doing. So check that out. And I think we are ready to go. Oh, let's see. We got some people from Chicago. And let's see. You left your Grand Bay Nails, you left your conference to watch us? Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But my goodness. Let's see. We got from Norway. Oh my gosh, you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Biba from Abu Dhabi. Awesome. You guys, thank you so much for joining us. Wherever you're joining us from, I love to see all of the different locations because it's really exciting for me to be able to share education worldwide, and we can all kind of come together as a community and just enjoy learning nails. So thank you for being here. Welcome in. Today, what we're going to be doing is, you guys really enjoyed last week's lesson about the full cover almond tips. So today we're going to be working with the full cover stiletto tips. So we're going to be doing a full cover application, and then we're going to be doing an ombre design. So if you're interested in learning an ombre look, definitely stick around with us and we will jump into that. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me bring the camera in a little bit for you guys to see a little better. So we're going to start by pushing back the cuticles, just like we would do for any full set, any fill, any application. You're always going to start by pushing back those cuticles. And I know on the trainer hand, it doesn't really do a whole lot. There's not really actual cuticle on our trainer hand, but it just gets you kind of into that routine, which is really important when you're doing nails. And I think a big part of kind of building up your speed is to be doing the same things over and over. So kind of getting into the habit of pushing back those cuticles, it's going to get you into the habit of doing that on a real client or doing that on yourself. So again, you want to make sure that you're staying in that habit and staying in that routine. So the more you practice the routine, the easier things are going to be, and the more it's just going to come natural. So you guys, you always see me when I do my demos, I really do things in the same order and the same techniques, and that's really what's going to help you to do your services faster. So getting into those habits. So just like I was saying, the habit that I'm in right now is prep. So we just put a brand new sanding band onto our E-file here, onto that mandrel bit. We're going to turn our E-file to about 5,000 RPMs. I'm going to hold that hand with the overhand grip. So instead of holding from underneath here, I hold that hand from the overhand grip. So this way I've got a little bit more control as to how I'm moving and maneuvering that client's finger. So let's come in a little closer. Again, we've got our medium grit sanding band. We've got our E-file on about 5,000 RPMs. I'm going to come right up around that cuticle area and just kind of working in shorter little kind of circular motions up around that cuticle, kind of down along the side. And then once we get to that side, I'm just going to start to feather my bit back and forth across the nail. And this is what's going to help to just give that nail just a slight texture. You guys, I'm not trying to grind away the surface of this. I'm just trying to basically break up the oils that are in the surface of that nail and give that nail a little bit of texture, which is what you can see at this point. Now I've got a little bit of a side right there that still looks a little bit shiny. I'm going to turn my handpiece. I'm going to use just the base of that bit right down through that side down there. If I need to come down over to the other side, just turn that finger again to that other side, and you can use just the tip of the bit right over on the side there. Okay. That's all that we need to do for our removing the shine. We don't need to go back through this another time. We don't need to go over it and over it. Just a quick once over, just enough to remove that shine and break up those surface oils. And then we got our manicure brush, and I'm just brushing kind of in that up and down motion. I'm not brushing across. Brushing across is just going to push that dust down into those sidewalls. By dusting in this direction, that's going to pull all of the dust off of the nail, and it's going to pull that dust out of those sidewalls. When you brush back up, this is actually going to lift up that cuticle. Now again, on our trainer hand, you really can't see, but if you kind of imagine on your real nail, let's see if we can. I just put some cuticle oil on, you guys, so my cuticles aren't really going anywhere, but you can almost kind of start to see that that brush is going to push back and kind of lift up on that cuticle. So any dust that may be underneath that cuticle, it's going to push that dust out and then pull that forward. Okay, so that's why we do brush in that kind of that up and down rather than the side to side motion. Okay, so maybe on this one you can kind of see a little bit better. Let me show you this. Let me push back my cuticle on this one, see if you guys can get a little bit of a better visual. So once I push that back and I've gone through and removed the shine, when I brush backwards, it actually lifts up that cuticle a little bit to get any of that dust that's underneath that cuticle cleaned out. So again, that's that upward brushing is going to lift up the cuticle, downward is going to clean out all of the dust from the sidewalls. All right. So let's continue with our prep. So we've gone through, we've pushed back the cuticles, we've removed the shine. We now need to cleanse the nail, and we're going to use our swipe. And those of you guys that were with me last week, I said I was going to refill my swipe and I didn't get around to it, but there's still enough in there. But swipe is that's that little blue liquid, but swipe is our cleanser. And this is what we're going to use to really scrub the nail. And this is what's going to help to clean off any extra dust. So you can kind of see there's still a little bit of dust around those sides, but it's also going to help to cleanse that natural nail, remove any of the excess oils that might still be on the surface of that nail, kind of come underneath that nail there a little bit too. But again, it's going to take off the extra dust, it's going to take off the extra oils, and it's also going to help with any germs or bacteria. So if you have, any kind of bacteria that may be on your nail, this is going to help to clean that off. And this way we're not going to end up with any kind of an infection or bacteria growth on our nail. Okay. Now we want to make sure that that nail comes back to that nice clean dry surface, just like we're at right now, before we even go on to our next product. But the next product we're going to use is Protein Bond. Protein Bond works like a double-sided tape. So this is not a primer, it's a bonder. And it's going to stick down to that natural nail, but then wherever you put this it's going to stick to whatever product you put on top of it. Okay, so I always say it works like a double-sided tape or it works like an anchor, however you want to think about it, but it is going to leave that tacky surface. So everything we put on top of this is going to adhere really well. Okay, now when I'm doing enhancements, either acrylic or hard gel, I tend to do 2 coats. And today we're not going to be doing acrylic or hard gel, but we are going to be putting on a full cover tip, and we're going to be using our tip and jewel adhesive. And so for that reason, I am still going to apply 2 coats of my Protein Bond, just to really make sure I've got great coverage on that whole nail, making sure that I'm going to have a really good bond with my tip to the nail. Now, speaking of our tips, I'm going to set our trainer hand off to the side here. So we're going to work with our full cover stiletto nails today. So if you haven't had a chance to work with these yet, you guys, you're going to love them. So I guarantee you're going to love them. But they are a tip, So they are a full cover. They don't have a specific well or attachment area on the back. So wherever you need to adhere that onto the nail, you can adhere that. Okay. You do want to make sure that you're sizing these tips out pretty well. No pun intended, pretty well. Haha. I know, you guys, bad joke, but you do want to make sure that you're sizing them out. You don't want to have to really press that tip down onto the nail. So if you're putting that tip on, let me find a smaller nail here. So you really don't want to be having to press that nail on. You don't want to be putting a lot of pressure to where that would have to fan out to get that nail on your natural nail, okay? The reason that we don't want to be having to apply too much pressure is when you put pressure, you flatten out that well. What happens is when you let go, that's going to want to go back to its original shape. It likes to be in that nice tight C curve, and if you try to press that down to get that to stick onto your nail, tendency is going to be to pop back up. So we want to make sure that when we are sizing our tips, that we fit that kind of that C curve a little bit first, and then make sure that the tip fits all the way from sidewall to sidewall. Now I'm going to grab, let me take a, we're going to take an extra large nail for, or an extra large tip for this nail. So just so you guys can kind of see some things. So when you're sizing out, do you see how this one really hangs off the sides a little bit? Let me come in a little closer. So you can see how that really is hanging off the sides all the way off, really far off on this side. So this one's definitely going to be too large. Now the challenge is that this one actually will fit if we look kind of backwards down the barrel. The C curve on this one fits perfectly to the C curve of that natural nail, okay? But it does look too wide. So I'm going to go to another size smaller and we'll see how that next one is going to fit. And so this one, now we've got a size 1. So the stiletto tips start at 0. So 0 is going to be our largest. Now this one, if we take another look, this one still fits into that C curve really well. Still a little bit wider on the sides than I would like it to be. Still kind of hanging over a little bit. So we'll go to the next size smaller. And this is a size 2. There's a little bit of fuzz on that one. So this one, if we take a look, this one is starting to feel like there's a little bit more of a C curve, and I kind of have to press that down just a little bit. You can kind of see as I press that down, it kind of bounces back up just a little bit. But this one does look like it's good from side to side. Okay, it's maybe just a little bit wide right up through here, but I'm going to kind of set this one off to the side. I'm going to just, that may be a possibility. We're going to go one size smaller. Let's see, 0, 1, 2. So let's go to a size 3. So with a size 3, if we take a look at that, this one has just a little bit of a tighter C curve. So if you kind of look down backwards down the barrel of the nail, I do have to use a little bit more pressure to press that down. And you can kind of see as I press that down, see how it kind of flares out just a little bit. So this one, I would say these two, so that last one that I had, these two are probably the closest in fit that I'm going to use. So let me just set that whole box of tips off to the side and then we'll see. So again, this is our size 2. So that one we do kind of have to press down just a little bit and it kind of flares out a little bit. And then this one, oops, sorry, hold on a second, you guys. This one, sorry, that was a size 3. So now we've got a size 2. So this one, I feel like it actually sits on that nail just a little bit better. I don't feel like I have to really press that down quite so much. And it does still fit side to side. Maybe just hanging off the edge just a tiny little bit. See a little bit hanging off the edge up here? That's okay. I would actually rather size just a little bit on the size that's too large than something that's too small, okay? So again, the size that is too small, this one, if we do press that down, it's going to kind of have more of that tendency to pop up. It does fit sidewall to sidewall, actually pretty perfect sidewall to sidewall, maybe just a little bit hanging at that edge, but it is going to have a tendency to pop. Now, you guys, today we're going to be using our tip and jewel adhesive to adhere the tips. So this is a gel. So this is what we're going to be using to adhere the tips. We're not going to be using our glue. Okay, so you guys, in the box of tips, we do have a little tube of glue. If you were going to be using the glue either the brush on glue or the tube glue. Either of those, if you're going to be using those, then I would go with the nail that is going to, it's going to fit right onto that well. Okay. If we're going to be using something a little thicker like the tip and jewel adhesive, there can be just a little bit of space underneath that nail. So again, this was the smaller one. So this one we could probably get away with putting that on with the tip or with the glue. But I want to make sure that I've got enough space for that thicker glue or that thicker adhesive underneath. So I'm going to size this one just a little bit to the bigger size. And that way we're going to have a little bit of space under that tip to allow our tip and jewel adhesive underneath there. You guys, does that make sense? Let me know in the chat. Throw a little heart in the chat if that's making sense, why you would use a larger size tip with the thicker glue or the thicker adhesive versus a smaller size tip with the glue. Okay, so the glue is definitely much thinner, so we don't need that extra space underneath. So throw a little heart in the chat. All right, Fairy Freak, you're telling me that that makes sense. Good. Is everybody else understanding that? Good. Okay, I'm starting to see those hearts in the chat. So again, you want to make sure that you're sizing that tip out so that it's going to fit properly. So let's go ahead and take one more kind of a quick look at this. Let me come in a little closer. So I was kind of noticing that it's a little bit hanging off through the top corners up here. So I can just adjust that with my file. So I'm going to just come in and just kind of round out so that little bit of space that was hanging off, I'm just going to file that off. Probably on both sides. I think it was hanging off on both sides. So we're going to file off both of those edges as well. We want to make sure that we're getting kind of the perimeter of this tip to fit as perfectly flush to what our natural nail tip or what our natural nail shape is looking like. Okay, so just kind of going through, let's make sure that that fits. And there's a little bit of dust on that nail there. Dust that off. All right, so let's check one more time to see. All right, so now if you look, it's going to be just right to that edge. And you guys, when I size out my tips, I do leave, and when I adhere them, I do leave a tiny little gap right around that cuticle area. I'm not going to put that tip all the way up onto that cuticle. If you adhere that tip all the way onto that cuticle, you're going to have issues with, first of all, it adhering because that tip and jewel adhesive is not going to adhere to your skin. So it's not going to adhere very well. You're probably going to end up with some lifting issues. And then it can also lead to contact dermatitis or allergic reactions. If you're getting any of that adhesive up onto the skin, over time, you can start to have issues with those kind of conditions. So make sure that when you're sizing out, you're still going to leave that little bit of a tiny space right up around that cuticle. And I think we're looking good. Now, before we actually adhere this tip on, something that you have to remember, when you're using the tip and jewel adhesive gel, gels do not bond to a shiny surface. So right now we've got a shiny surface. If we were to put our tip and jewel adhesive into that well, glue that down, what's going to happen is that shiny surface is actually going to pop off. So your tip and jewel adhesive is probably going to adhere to that natural nail, but the tip itself is going to pop off. So before we actually try to adhere this, I'm going to go back to my e-file and still with that same mandrel and sanding band, I'm going to turn my e-file on, still on about 5,000 RPMs. We're going to come into that well and I'm just going to remove the shine. So removing the shine is going to allow our tip to adhere to the gel, and the gel is then going to adhere to the natural nail. Now you want to make sure that you're completely removing the shine. So let me just dust this off really quick here. You guys, in the meantime, if you're enjoying our lesson today, make sure you hit that subscribe button, join our community, get all of this great free education. Okay, so I'm going to check. Now, I want to make sure that that whole natural nail, wherever I'm going to adhere this tip to, that I've removed the shine. You can see there's a little bit of that natural nail showing through there, so I need to remove just a little bit more of that shine so that I can get this tip to adhere all the way without any shine there. Okay, so I think that one probably is going to be good. Again, we'll dust that off. Let's take a look. Okay, so now that now that well basically that I've created is going to cover that whole natural nail and we're going to be just fine. All right, I just want to make sure there's just a little tiny bit of dust. Now, you guys, a lot of times what I will do is before I even go through and do my prep, I will size out the tips, remove the shine from that well. That way I'm not going to get dust on those nails, just kind of like you saw here. I had a little bit of dust on there. But go through, do your sizing, remove the shine, and then do your prep on that natural nail. So that way you know your natural nail is going to be nice and clean and dry and all of that good stuff. But just going to make sure that's nice and dust free. Now, something else that I'm going to grab while I'm kind of setting up. This is our touch cure light. And this, you guys, works really good for setting the tips into place. So if you push the button, you see it's got a little timer on there, but it is a curing light on the end. So I will use this to kind of set that, that jewel adhesive or that tip and jewel adhesive into place. So this way, if I were doing a full set, I could get all of these nails done before I actually put them into the full curing light. Okay, so just so that you guys know, that's what I'm using here. Again, this is our Touch Cure Light. So let's go ahead and get our nail on here. Now I'm going to grab my dual-ended brush and spatula. So on one end, it's got a nice little spatula that I can use. And then on the other end, it's got a little brush. So if you prefer to use the brush, you can use the brush. I find that that spatula end works really good for getting the product out of my container. Now I've seen, you guys, I'm going to show you something. Let me grab another tip here. A lot of times I see people try to use their tip and they scoop the tip down into the gel. So they come in from here and they kind of scoop that tip into the well. And then they try to go onto the nail. Now, what I tend to see with this happening is, do you see how much product we've got? Let me come in a little closer. Do you see how much product we've got kind of oozing out the sides here? When you go to put that onto your nail, I'm just going to show you guys on this little, on the other practice one. When you go to put that on, a lot of times when you've got that much of the product, see how much squeezed out the top part there? But also on the sides. A lot of times you end up with too much product there and it'll squeeze out on those sides. Now, I'm going to show you how to apply the tip at kind of a downward angle and sliding it back so that you don't get that stuff coming out the top. But I still find that if you try to scoop that up, I tend to get a little bit of product on the sides. So what I do instead of scooping that out is that's where I will use my little spatula here, and I will take a scoop of that right up there, and then I will use the spatula. And I'm going to start this right at, actually, let me kind of tuck that in a little bit on the side. I'm going to start with that right at the edge of where I filed the well. Okay, I'm going to press that down in there and then just kind of slide and scrape that gel off of my spatula all the way down to that cuticle area. Now you can see it didn't come all the way to the edges. Let me see if I can get a little closer even. So it didn't come all the way to the edges, so I can just kind of move that out just a little bit. I'm not still going to bring that all the way to the edge, because when I put pressure onto the nail and put that onto that natural nail, you're still going to have some product squeezing out to the sides. So that's why I want to leave a little bit of space all the way around those sides so that I don't have product oozing out those edges. Okay. Now, again, when I'm using the tip and jewel adhesive, I tend to use a little bit more on nails like this, because if you notice, if we take a look here, not every nail is going to fit that well perfectly. You can see how our natural nail here is a little bit flatter than the tip that we're putting on. So if that happens, that little bit of thicker tip and jewel adhesive is going to kind of fill in those gaps. And this also works great if you've got a client with maybe some ridges on their nails and things like that. It's going to fill that in without having any air pockets or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to start, and I'm going to turn this on the side so you guys can see. But I'm going to start at kind of an angle to the nail. I'm going to press this on and then slide it back. Okay, I have to turn this straight so that I can see what I'm doing. So again, we're going to press that down. So press that down towards the cuticle, slide it back. That way we're going to get a nice clean application. Actually, you guys hang on one second here. I want to start just a little bit farther back. I think I was too far down the nail. So I'm going to start about right here. Slide that back so I don't get that ledge of product squeezing out. And then I'm just going to rock that tip down until it starts to meet and you can see that gel coming out to the end. Now I do see a tiny little air pocket right through there. If I need to, I can release and I'm kind of scraping off that gel just to make sure that we don't have that little air pocket. But we'll do that same thing, press down, slide back, rock that tip down towards the end. I'm going to put a little bit of pressure back at that cuticle area and then bring that gel all the way to the end. Okay. Now you guys, I am still seeing one little air pocket right down there, but for today's demo, I'm not going to worry too much about that. You guys saw kind of how I removed that. You know what? I'll show you again, just in case you missed it. So I'm going to put pressure, slide that down, scrape that off just a little bit, and we'll try that one more time. Press that down by the cuticle, slide it back so it's as close to the cuticle as I can get it. And then again, I'm going to press down all the way until that's pressing out towards the end. I'm just going to kind of hold that there with my finger. I'm going to use my Touch Cure light and we're going to just kind of set that into place. Now you guys, let me back the camera out a little bit here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I've got the Touch Cure light and right now I've got it, it's probably about 2 to 3 inches away from this nail. Now, when you're actually working on a real person or on yourself, on your clients, you want to make sure that, let me come back out here and bring my camera out a little bit. You want to make sure that you're not keeping that light directly onto that nail. You want to be working, I would say probably about 6 inches away or so, still making sure that that light is coming in contact with that area. But if you're working so close to that nail, what's going to happen is that gel is going to cure really, really quickly, and you're probably going to end up with a heat spike, and that can actually burn on the nail. So you want to make sure that when you're working on a real person, that you're staying, I would say about 6 inches away or so. That way it's going to cure it a little bit slower. It's going to set everything into place, but it's not going to have that, that heat spike. Okay. Now, once we do freeze that into place, I am going to put this into our UV LED light and we're going to cure that for a full 60 seconds. Okay. Now, the reason that I don't use the little touch cure light to cure fully is because if you take a look, let me come in a little closer here. Come in a little bit. So if you use that light to try to cure, you have to make sure that that nail is curing all the way from every side, all the way around to the other side, all through that whole entire nail. And if you're holding that touch cure light on there, you guys can see there's some areas that aren't necessarily getting hit with that light. So this light here is a great tool to freeze your product into place. But if you're trying to do a full cure, I would always put that into the UV LED light, and that's going to give you that full cure. Okay, so that's going to go in there for a full 60 seconds. When that comes out, we can go ahead and start on our fiber gel application. So a couple more seconds in there. All right, so that one is cured out fully. All right, so let's come in here. You guys, if you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, join our community, get all the free education you can, and be part of something fun here. All right, so what we're going to do, I can see I had just a tiny little bit of gel right up around that, that cuticle area, but if we look very close, it still did not touch that cuticle, which is exactly what we want. We want to make sure that our product is not coming in contact with that cuticle, okay? Even though we had to slide that off and kind of redo that a couple of times, we still stayed that little bit away from the cuticle, okay? All right, what we're going to do is, I'm going to come back out there. Now, you guys, these tips, they are in that stiletto shape. If you want to reshape them, you can kind of shorten them up a little bit more if you need to. If you want to, let me grab my tip cutter. You can use a tip cutter and you can shorten these up a little bit. You could use, if you don't have a tip cutter, you can use just a toenail clipper and you can clip off some of that length if you want to. But for today, we're going to leave that as a stiletto. But I do want to kind of check, and I did file a little bit right off that free edge. There's usually a little, kind of a little tag right at that end. I don't know if you can kind of see that right there. just that little edge. That's just from how the tips are molded. So there's sometimes that little bit of a frayed edge there. So make sure you remove that. You can come in along those sidewalls if you need to reshape anything along the sides. Clean that up a little bit. Shape up the nail. If you want it a little bit more, kind of a little more pointy, again, you can make that a little bit more pointy just by filing those edges a little bit. But really, a lot of that shape is already in there for you, so you don't have to really worry too much about shaping. Okay. What we do want to make sure of is, though, is that we blend out this back area and that we remove the shine from the rest of that extension. When we're doing a gel application over our full cover tip, we want to make sure that we're removing that shine so that our gel on top will adhere. If you were to just leave this nail nice and shiny, kind of like we did with that underneath side, if you were to leave that shiny and you try to put gel on there or gel polish, it's going to just basically peel off. So what we want to do is we're going to take down, if there's any little bit of a ledge right back by that cuticle, we're just going to come up around that cuticle just like we did when we were prepping. So just kind of those short little strokes around the edge, cleaning up that edge, making sure that it's flush down to that natural nail. There's no ledge in that back area. And then just going to make sure I've got my side here really good. But then we're just going to go through and, again, just like we did with our prep, come back out here, but just like we did with our prep, we're going to remove that shine from the whole nail. Okay, removing that shine, getting that really well kind of textured, because again, when we apply gel to this nail, that gel is not going to adhere to any of those shiny spots. So really making sure that there's no shine left on this nail. Again, making sure there's no ledge up around that cuticle area. And I think we are good to go. All right. So at this point, I'm going to dust off this nail. And now we've basically got our whole nail to work on. And dust that off really, really well. Now, you guys, I see there's a little bit of a shine right down at the edge here. And it is super important to check, especially around those sides and around those edges, to make sure that you don't have any shine left. Because if you have shine on those edges, that is where your gel is really going to be more prone to chipping or peeling away. So checking those edges, making sure everything is completely shine free. And somebody is saying to use acetone. You guys, here's the thing. When you're working with these plastic tips, you do not want to use acetone over them. Acetone is what we use to soak off the plastic tips. And so acetone will actually start to kind of break the surface down. And if we were to use, oh, let's say we had, you guys, this is a dry wipe, but if we had acetone on here and we went through and we kind of scrubbed and cleansed that nail, whoops, let me slide that back on. But if we went through and scrubbed and cleansed that nail, it's actually going to smooth out that surface again. So I don't recommend using acetone. And at this point, I think our tendency would be to cleanse that nail with our swipe, but swipe still does have a little bit of acetone to it. So I, at this point, don't even use the swipe. What I do want to make sure that I'm doing is really getting in there, making sure that nail is really well dusted off so that there's no dust on there. At this point, we don't necessarily need to cleanse because we're not putting anything now onto that natural nail. This is all going onto this plastic tip. So at this point, we don't necessarily have to worry about germs and bacteria and those kind of things, okay? So just dry brush all the way through that nail. Make sure it's nice and clean, dust free. We're going to come back to our protein bond again. And our protein bond, remember, is our bonder. So we want to add our protein bond for a really nice sticky surface. Now with this, this layer, we're just going to do one coat just so that we get a really good tacky surface for our next application. And you guys, I always start with my product towards the center of the nail and then I work it out to the sides. So this way it's not going to flood up into that cuticle area or those sidewalls, okay? All right, so we're gonna do an ombre on this nail. And to ombre, I'm gonna be using our fiber gel. And when I do my full cover tips like this, the fiber gel I feel like is going to give that nail a little bit more durability over the surface while still maintaining flexibility. Okay, you guys, let me grab my wipe here. I kind of grab that, you can kind of see this nail. I don't know if you can see it, but you guys, I don't want to touch that because it's got the protein bond on it. But if I were to kind of grab that tip, it's still going to have a little bit of flexibility to it. And I find that the fiber gel, doing an overlay with the fiber gel, is really going to help to keep that flexibility to the nail, but still give it a little bit of strength. Okay, so that's why I'm going to be using fiber gel. Now, could you do this with just a regular gel polish? Absolutely, you definitely can. But I do like kind of the consistency of the fiber gel. And I also find that the fiber gel works really good to kind of blend together. So again, we're going to be doing an ombre. So let me come in here. I'm going to take a little bit and we're going to be using our Cover Nude Fiber Gel. I absolutely love this color. I think it's a gorgeous color for just a natural nail or for that ombre look. I am going to put a little bit of that down onto my mixing tile here, just in case I need that for later. And I'll show you guys why I would need that for later. But we're also going to be using our soft white. So those are the colors that we've got. And I've also got my micro detailer brush. So you can use either the micro detailer, or if you have an ombre brush, you can use your ombre brush. But I personally think the micro detailer works really, really well for this. So we're going to start with our Cover Nude. And you guys, if you haven't worked with the fiber gel before, you're going to notice that it is a much thicker consistency than what your traditional gel polish is. Okay, this is going to be more of kind of a, I don't want to say a building gel, but it's a little bit more of kind of a structured gel manicure kind of a product. So it's going to add a little bit of thickness, but depending on how firmly you brush, if you just kind of float your product over, it's going to leave a little bit more thickness. If you put a little more pressure with your brush, it's going to leave a little bit of a thinner layer. So just kind of depending on, the thickness that you're needing, you can use a little bit more pressure or do a little bit more floating. But because we've already got the tip on here, I don't actually want to add a lot of thickness to this. I don't need to add a lot of thickness. So all I'm going to do is just kind of lightly brush all the way through, and maybe we'll take just a tiny little bit more just to give it a little bit more coverage. So I'm kind of putting a little pressure, but kind of floating a little bit, if that makes any sense. So bringing that about halfway down, and then I'm going to grab my, actually, you know what, I'm going to still use this brush. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just kind of drag out that product so that I don't really have a lot of product on my brush, but I'm just going to kind of use that to feather out the edge of my pink just a little bit. Okay, so you can kind of see a little bit closer in there. Then I'm going to come in with my soft white, and we're going to do the same thing basically, but from the free edge back. Okay, so we're going to just kind of brush a little bit, maybe had a little too much on my brush there. Brush a little bit on, and then I'm just going to kind of push that back towards the pink. Now, if you do get any of that pink on your brush, you can just kind of dab that right onto your little mixing tile. But if you don't need to, you don't need to. Now, the thing that I love about the fiber gel, you guys, you can see how much it just kind of softens and kind of relaxes on its own. Okay, that's exactly why I love using this for my my ombres. I'm just going to kind of pull a little bit of that up from the sides. Looks like it's kind of a little bit thicker around my edges than I really need. So just kind of pulling that up, and then I'm just going to kind of feather the pink and the white together. Now we are going to do a second coat over the top of this, so if you don't have a perfect blend at this point, it's okay, don't panic about it. But just kind of blend those together as much as you can. And then I'm going to use a lint-free wipe. I'm just going to kind of clean out my brush a little bit if I need to. This is where, let me come up here. This is where that little bit of product on my tile comes in handy. If I need to, I can use that to kind of fill in up around my cuticle if I needed to get a little bit thicker or anything up around there or along those side walls. So you can just kind of touch this up anywhere you need to. Again, still not quite touching that cuticle, but just a little bit closer. And then again, I do kind of give this a little bit of time to just settle, because this will kind of settle a little bit. It is very self-leveling. So I'm just going to pull a little bit more of that product right from that point. It was kind of, I don't want to say puddling, but it was collecting a little bit more in the point than really what I needed. So I'm just going to kind of blend that backwards. And as you let this sit, it's going to really just kind of blend together for you. Okay. Now, again, if it's not perfect, that's okay. Do the best that you can with that first layer. Okay. We're going to get this into the light, and I'm going to set this one into place. We'll do a quick 30-second freeze on that. So just 30 seconds, enough to set that layer into place, enough to give you guys a chance to hit the subscribe button while we're waiting for it. But then we're going to do a second coat, and we're going to do the same exact application. So again, we're going to do another coat of the Cover Nude, blending that into the soft white. Okay. Now, again, you guys, if you feel like you'd rather use the ombre brush, I'll show you that one on this next application. Personal preference, it's up to you which one you use, but I'm going to make sure to kind of just gently clean out any of that gel out of my brush. Make sure that I'm not over blending. All right, same thing. Come in here, grab our Cover Nude. Oops, there you guys. You guys want to see what I'm doing here. So again, take a good amount. I don't want to overdo it, but I want a good amount on my brush. And again, we'll start right up at that cuticle area. And notice that I don't start right at the cuticle. I start a little ways away, kind of get my brush to fan out, and then I kind of wiggle the brush and push that up towards the cuticle and then pull down. So again, this way it's not going to flood that product into my cuticle area. And then I can just work that all the way around the cuticle, down the sidewall. And again, if I need to kind of build up a little bit more structure or leave a little bit more thickness, I just lighten up the pressure on my brush. And then again, we'll kind of blend that down a little bit. And you can already start to see that really blending well, okay? Again, I'm going to grab my brush here, pick up a little bit of that from my tile. There's a couple of little edges I just want to touch up around the sides here, making sure I get enough product all the way down to those edges. And same thing over here on the right side. Now you guys be careful that you're not applying too much product down into those sidewalls, because again, you don't want your product to run and flow into the sidewall, okay? All right, same thing. We're going to grab our soft white, grab a layer of that, brush that through our free edge, and you guys can see how thick this product actually is. So it is going to leave a little bit of thickness over the surface of this nail, which is what we want, but again, we don't want too thick. Just enough to kind of give this nail a little bit more durability, because right now we don't have any other enhancement over that. We don't have acrylic, we don't have hard gel, we just have now our fiber gel. So now I'm going to show you guys how to use that, the ombre brush. So I'm just going to kind of blend back a little bit, kind of tucking around those edges, blending. And again, if you prefer, you could go back to that liner brush or that micro detailer. And I like to use that micro detailer right around those edges to again kind of pull that product, make sure it's not puddling down along those edges. But you can see how just with that little bit of effort, very little effort, it's really going to kind of blend on its own. And I'm just kind of brushing through just a little bit to kind of get that to blend a little bit more. Okay. All right, I think we are good. Oops, I got a little bit more. I need a little more product up into my side here. So again, pulling a little bit of that up, blending that together. And again, you guys, as I let this kind of settle, it really blends together a little bit better. Okay, we're going to pop this back into the light for, again, maybe another 30 seconds or so. And you guys didn't think I was going to do a demo without using any glitter, did you? Let me know in the chat. Did you think we're going to just do a solid white pink and white ombre, or did you think we were going to do glitter? Because we're going to do glitter. So I'm going to be using this is called Numero Uno, and we're going to do just a really quick glitter press over the surface of this nail. Okay, just to add a little bit of sparkle. If you don't want to add glitter, you don't have to add glitter, but you can definitely add for just a little bit more sparkle. And let's see, somebody's saying, "I would have been surprised." Yeah, you guys, if I don't add glitter to the nail, there might be something wrong. I'm just kidding. Sometimes you don't always need glitter, but on today's nail, I think I want a little bit of glitter. But again, you can see how really pretty that pink and white just kind of blended together all on its own. But at this point, our nail does have a little bit of a tacky surface to it. So we're going to just take that, what do we say, numero uno, and this is just a really, really pretty, just a very soft, kind of a gold shimmer to it. Okay. And I am going to grab my brush, and I'm just using a really fluffy kind of it's just a makeup brush. So just like an eyeshadow brush, but just a really fluffy eyeshadow brush. Don't get anything too terribly expensive. But I'm just going to tap my brush into the glitter and then onto the nail, into the glitter, onto the nail, and just kind of working all the way back up towards that cuticle area, really making sure that I've got good coverage with that glitter on there. Now I know it looks like it's really covering up that nail and covering up that ombre, but I'm going to dust through that nail and just take off a little bit of that excess. And that last little bit that's remaining is just kind of sticking into that top tacky surface of the nail. Now I'm going to grab one other thing here, you guys. I almost forgot to get it, but oops. I'm going to use my stamper. And you guys, if you haven't seen our stampers, you're going to love them. We've actually got them coming up on sale here, coming up in just a little bit. So I'm going to be using my stamper, and I'm also going to grab my stamper cleaner because I want to make sure that I'm going to use a nice clean stamp. And this is just like a little sticky lint roller. I'm just going to use that to clean off that stamper. But I'm going to use the stamper to really press that glitter down. Okay, we're going to just press that glitter down into that tacky finish. So this way, especially around those edges, you guys, this way I'm not going to have little bits and pieces of glitter poking out. And it's much easier than trying to use your finger, because with your finger you can tend to get a little bit of that gel on your skin. And again, you don't want to be doing that. So we're going to take this nail. Now that glitter is pressed down into that tacky surface, but I am going to go back into the light for maybe, I would say, 20 to 30 seconds just to kind of freeze that into place. And that little tacky layer is going to really hold that glitter where it's at. Because when we do our top coat, we don't want to smear that glitter, or we don't want to smudge that. So we're going to leave that in there. And then we're going to take our, you guys, a lot of times you see me using the Ultimate Finish for our top coat. And the Ultimate Finish is great. You can definitely use that. But when I'm working with our fiber gel is a soft gel. It's a very flexible gel. So I tend to use my Manicure top coat when I'm working with the fiber gel, because the Manicure top coat is also a soft gel and it's also very flexible. So that's what we're going to use on our nail today. Now, you guys, I know you're used to doing the top coat chant at this point, but we're not quite there yet, because there is something that I am going to show you just in case it happens. So we're going to just top coat this, and anytime I'm working over a glitter press like we did, I'm going to do 2 coats of my top coat. Okay, that first coat of top coat is going to seal that glitter in, and then you're going to do a second coat of top coat, and that second coat is going to really give you that smooth finish and that high shine. Okay, so our first coat is on there. You can still see there's kind of some texture to the nail. If we come in really close again, yeah, you can still see some texture on there. Do you see how that light is reflecting? That light should look a lot smoother than this. Okay, so that's kind of an indication that our surface is not very smooth. But we're going to get this layer into our light. We're going to freeze that again for maybe 30 seconds or so. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do our second coat of top coat. And like I said, our second coat is going to really seal in that glitter. It's going to give us that really nice, nice smooth finish at the end. Okay. Now again, we're not ready. We're not at the final steps of top coat, because I am going to show you one other technique. But that's been in there almost 30 seconds. So again, we're going to do a second coat of our Manicure top coat, just enough to really seal that in. And you're going to start to see with the second coat, the nail is going to look much smoother, and you're going to have a little bit more of a shine just because the nail is smoother. Okay. Now this one we are going to go into the light for a full 60-second cure. So again, that's going to be in the light for the full 60 seconds. When this does come out, it is going to have a tacky surface to it. So let me come back here. But because it is a manicure product is going to be a soft gel and something that acetone will start to break down. So it does have a tacky surface, so we're going to use Manicure Cleanser to remove that tacky surface. Manicure Cleanser does not have any acetone to it, so that's why we're not going to be using our swipe, because swipe does have a little bit of acetone. And like I was telling you guys earlier, when we were talking about the plastic tip, if we use something that's got acetone in it over that plastic tip or over the tacky surface of our manicure top coat, it can kind of leave a dull finish. So that's why we're going to use the Manicure Cleanser instead. No acetone in here, and this is going to clean that nail really, really nicely. All right, we got just a second left on there. All right, so again, at this point, I've got that Manicure Cleanser. We're going to clean that surface off here. Whoops, I don't want to pull that nail off of there. Oh, hang on just a second. Let me get that back in there. All right, so at this point, you guys, you could be done with this nail. Now, if you feel like maybe there's a little bit of kind of rough edges, or maybe your surface needs to be just a little bit smoother, you can come in, and I like to use, let me come back out here. I like to use our 180 grit file buffer combos because it's got that file on one side, but then it's got that buffer on the other side. So if you need to, you can come back in, use that file around the edges, and if you just file a little bit, you still have those 2 coats of top coat over this nail. So you're not going to be filing off any of that color or that glitter unless you go crazy with it. But we're not really going to go crazy with it. We're just going to kind of smooth out those edges, again, making sure that there's no glitter poking out or anything like that. And then if you need to, you can use that file up and over the surface, or you can just come through. If you just need a little bit of smoothing, you can use that buffer side to really smooth out any of those edges. And we will do another top coat over this. So you guys, again, this is an optional step. You don't have to go through and do any filing. If your nail was nice and smooth and perfect and everything was even, you could have just left it with that top coat. But I do like to show you guys this because I think sometimes with that fiber gel, it does need just a little bit of filing, okay? Just to make sure everything is nice and smooth and even. And I'm going to go through those edges one last time with my 180 just to make sure there's a little bit of kind of a little texture, kind of like we've been talking about all this whole time, making sure there's a little bit of texture on that nail. So that way our top coat is going to adhere really well. Okay. All right, you guys. So now you can kind of see it's a little bit smoother. And now we're going to go through with our final top coat. So those of you that know what time it is, let's go ahead and start our top coat chant in the chat. And I got to find my brush here. So again, you guys, if you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our community and get all of this great free education. So again, just dusting off that nail. Now, this time I can use a little bit of that swipe, just enough to kind of take off any of those last little bits of dust that may be on there. Oops, maybe just a little bit here. So again, just a little bit of swipe. Now this time I'm not worried that it's going to remove the shine because we are going to put our top coat back on there and it's going to bring it up to a nice high shine. Okay. So again, you guys hit that top coat chant in the chat. I'm going to add a coat of my protein bond. And that's going to, again, give this a nice tacky layer for our top coat to adhere to. Coming all the way through. Let me come in a little closer there. You guys, it's always fun when you put the protein bond because it's kind of a little cheater. It's a little cheater so you can see a little bit more of what your design is going to look like before you put your top coat on. All right, let me grab my manicure top coat. And again, you guys, you could go with the Ultimate Finish top coat. You can use your manicure top coat. You can use your conversion top coat. At this point, you could also use your stain resistant top coat. Now, normally, if you're just doing a regular gel polish on a natural nail, I don't recommend using the stain resistant. but because we've got this little bit of extra thickness, we've got this tip underneath, the stain resistant could hold up and give you a nice solid finish too. So if you do need to use that stain resistant top coat over your ombre, you can definitely do that. So we're going to go back into the light one more time for our full 60-second cure. Give you guys one more chance to hit that subscribe button. And somebody was asking, what is the glitter? The glitter that I used is called Numero Uno. And it's just that really fine, let me open that back up again, just that really fine kind of a gold tint to it. Okay, so there was that. And then the colors that we used for the ombre, it was our fiber gel in the, let me come out here. It was the fiber gel in the Cover Nude and the Soft White. So those were the two colors that we used on our ombre. And again, you guys, when this comes out of the light, I'm going to use our Manicure cleanser one last time. Take a little pump of that on a lint-free wipe, and we will cleanse the surface in just about 5 seconds here. So again, you guys make sure to hit that subscribe button, join our community. We love having you guys here as part of our community. So again, we're gonna just cleanse that nail with our Manicure Cleanse. Make sure that's nice and clean, tack-free. And then I'm always gonna finish, and I always forget to do it and show you guys on the trainer hands, but I'm trying to be better. But especially the dry months, you wanna make sure that you are using your cuticle oils and really helping to hydrate those cuticles, keeping those nails underneath nice and flexible, keeping those enhancements nice and flexible. Now, obviously, this is not going to soak into my trainer hand, but the cuticle oil, the rose oil, does really soak in really well into your skin and leaves you with a beautiful, soft, soft hydrated skin. So you guys, there is our fiber gel ombre over our full cover stiletto tip. You guys, let me see if I can get some other color in here behind that. There we go. So now you can really see a little bit more of that beautiful ombre color and that little bit of hint of sparkle. Let's see, Audrey's asking, wondering why the shine dulls after cleansing the top coat. It always dulls. So that's kind of what I was talking about, you guys. If you are using the Manicure top coat or another soft gel top coat, you want to make sure that you're using something like the Manicure Cleanse to clean off that top coat, because Manicure Cleanse does not have any of that acetone to it, so it's not going to dull it. If you use a soft gel with something that has acetone to it, either acetone or swipe, that can leave a little bit more of a dull finish, okay? So make sure that you're cleansing properly. And if you are needing something that is a tack-free top coat, you can always go with the Ultimate Finish top coat. Super fast, super easy, no tacky finish to wipe off, okay? The Tip and Jewel Adhesive, somebody's asking, what is the Tip and Jewel Adhesive? It's this one right here. And all of the products, you guys, that I've been working with today are Young Nails, so you can find them at youngnails.com. And I believe our moderators have that link tagged or, tagged or posted there in pinned. That's what it is, pinned in our chat here, so you guys can find all of the products at youngnails.com. But again, you guys, somebody said an easy design today. Yes, you guys, sometimes easy designs or things that sound easy, they may not always be easy, or they may not always, look like they're, I don't know. Sometimes they look harder than they are. But with our products that we use today, I feel like that ombre is really an easy thing to do. So hopefully you guys try that out. And if you do, make sure to tag us here at Young Nails so that we can see that you are doing all of these fun designs and things that we're showing you. So one more time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us next time. We're usually here 3 times a week on YouTube, so make sure to join us back next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.